There's a story we tell ourselves, a myth we carry like a banner in the wind. The idea that to walk alone is to walk strong, that the lone wolf separated from the pack is somehow more noble, more powerful. But what if that isn't strength at all? What if it is a slow, quiet surrender to something far more dangerous than we realize? The world has a way of teaching us that self-sufficiency is the highest virtue, that needing no one is the mark of true power. And so we build walls around our hearts. We tell ourselves we are better off alone. We learn to survive without leaning on another, mistaking endurance for fulfillment. We wear our independence like a shield, convincing ourselves that if we don't need anyone, we can't be hurt by anyone. But in the silence of our own making, when the noise fades and we are left only with ourselves, something begins to whisper. Something we try so hard to ignore because deep down we know we were never meant to walk this road alone. Look around you. The world was not created in isolation. The rivers carve their path with the help of the rain. The trees grow only where the roots can hold firm in the soil. And even the stars burn in constellations, sending their light across the heavens together. There is no creature, no force, no movement in this vast universe that exists in complete separation. Everything was designed to work together, to support, to sustain, to complete. And yet, how often do we convince ourselves that we are different? How often do we believe the lie that to be strong, we must cut ourselves off? A wolf without a pack does not grow stronger, it grows weaker. It loses the protection, the wisdom, the shared strength of the others. Alone, it tires faster. It becomes vulnerable. The lone wolf may wander for a time, but eventually the night closes in and the weight of its solitude becomes too much to bear. And isn't that how it is for us? We pull away when we are wounded. We retreat when life disappoints us. We convince ourselves that no one will understand, that no one truly sees us, that it is safer to walk alone than to risk being hurt again. But that's not how we were made. That's not the design. We were created for relationship, for communion, for a life woven together with others. You see, strength is not found in isolation. Strength is found in the bonds we forge, in the love we extend, in the hands we hold when the road gets hard. Strength is found in learning to trust again, to step beyond the walls we've built, to recognize that we were never meant to carry the burdens of life alone. Some of you have been walking the path of the lone wolf for too long. You have convinced yourself that solitude is safer, that silence is easier. But deep inside you know it has left you weary. It has left you longing for something more. But listen, your story isn't over yet. The call to return is not a sign of weakness. It is the invitation to truly live, to belong, to take your place in the great design, because you were never meant to walk alone. You were meant for something far greater. Look at the world around you. Look at the sky stretched high above, at the oceans that rise and fall with the pull of the moon, at the forests standing tall with their roots entwined beneath the soil. There is not a single thing in all of creation that exists in isolation. Everything is connected, woven together in a grand design so vast, so intricate, that we can barely begin to comprehend it. And yet, how often do we convince ourselves that we are different, that somehow we were meant to walk this life alone? From the moment we are born, we enter into a world of relationships, first with our mothers, then with our families, then with the wider world beyond. As children, we do not question our need for others. We reach for hands to hold. We call out when we are afraid. We seek comfort, love, and guidance. But somewhere along the way, something changes. We grow older, and the world begins to teach us that dependence is weakness, that to need is to be vulnerable, and to be vulnerable is to invite disappointment. And so we withdraw. We put up walls. We convince ourselves that to be strong, we must stand apart. But look again at creation. Look at the way the birds migrate together, following unseen currents in the sky. Look at the way the rivers find their course, shaped by the land that guides them. Look at the way even the stars do not shine alone, but burn in constellations, lighting up the darkness together. Nothing in this world was made to exist in isolation. Everything was created to be part of something greater. A single raindrop does not make an ocean. A single seed does not make a forest. And a single life cut off from the rest does not flourish. It fades. There is a reason why loneliness is so heavy, why isolation feels like a weight pressing down on the soul. It is because we were never designed to bear life alone. Just as the branches of a tree draw strength from their roots, just as the waves of the ocean are pulled by the rhythm of the tide, we too are part of a greater movement, a divine symphony that calls us into connection. Some of you know what it is to feel cut off, to feel like you are drifting alone in the vastness of life. Maybe you have built a life that looks strong on the outside, but inside there is an emptiness that no amount of success, no amount of distraction can fill. Maybe you have been hurt before, and so you have learned to keep others at a distance, convincing yourself that it is safer to walk alone than to risk being wounded again. But listen, creation itself is calling to you. It is whispering in the wind, in the waves, in the quiet moments of the night. It is telling you that you are not meant to be alone, that you were made for something greater, that your life has a place in the grand design, a purpose, a connection to something beyond yourself. You don't have to keep walking this road alone. The same hand that set the stars in place, that shaped the mountains and filled the seas, has also shaped you, has placed you in this world for a reason. You were never meant to be an island. You were never meant to carry the weight of life on your own. Step back into the rhythm of life. Take your place in the great symphony of existence, because no river flows alone, no star shines alone, and neither should you. There is a silence that is not peace, a loneliness that is not rest. It creeps in slowly, so slowly that we don't even notice it at first. We withdraw a little here, pull away a little there. We tell ourselves it's just for a time, just until we heal, just until we find our footing again. But isolation does not heal. It does not restore. It does not give back what life has taken. No. Isolation does something far more dangerous. It unravels. At first, it feels like a refuge, a place to retreat when the world becomes too loud, too painful, too unpredictable. We convince ourselves that pulling away is the answer, that if we can just be alone with our thoughts, if we can just escape from the weight of it all, then maybe, just maybe, we will find clarity. Maybe the silence will bring us peace. But listen, silence is not always the voice of wisdom. Sometimes it is the echo of a heart forgetting how to be known. A fire left on its own does not burn brighter, it fades. The embers that once glowed with heat and life cool in the absence of others, until nothing is left but ashes. And so it is with the human soul. When we pull away from others, when we convince ourselves that we can carry the weight of life alone, something inside us begins to fade. And the worst part, we don't always see it happening. At first, we tell ourselves we're fine, we keep going, we keep moving, we wear the mask of self-sufficiency, convincing the world and ourselves that we don't need anyone. But slowly, something shifts. The laughter doesn't come as easily. The days feel a little heavier. The joy that once stirred in our hearts feels distant, like a melody we can no longer quite hear. And one day we wake up and realize we are not the same, because you cannot lock your heart away without it growing cold. You cannot isolate yourself without it costing something. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've felt it, you've lived it. Maybe you've convinced yourself that this is just the way life is now, that the days of deep connection, of true belonging, of shared joy, they belong to the past. Maybe you've come to believe that people will only disappoint you, that love is too costly, that it's easier to just keep to yourself. But that is not the life you were meant for. You were created to love and be loved, to know and be known, to walk alongside others in the beauty and mess of life, not to wander alone in the wilderness of your own thoughts. The pain of isolation is real, but it is not permanent. The silence may have settled in, but it is not the end of your story. You may have been walking this road alone for a long time, but hear this. You are not too far gone to turn back. You are not too lost to be found. The walls you have built do not have to be your prison. The loneliness that has weighed on your heart does not have to be your future. There is a way back. There is a voice calling you home. You do not have to be a fading ember, a forgotten melody, a wandering soul with no place to rest. You were never meant to be alone. Step out of the silence. Come back to the fire, because life, real, full, abundant life, does not happen in exile. It happens in love. There is a reason the human heart longs for connection. A reason we are drawn to love, to family, to friendship, to something greater than ourselves. We were not made for isolation. We were made for relationship. From the beginning of time, life itself has been a story of belonging. The sun belongs to the sky, the waves to the sea, the branches to the tree, and we were made to belong too. Not just to each other, but to something higher, something eternal. But somewhere along the way we forget. Life disappoints us. People let us down. We experience betrayal, rejection, loss. And so little by little we begin to close off. We tell ourselves that if we don't expect much from others, we won't be hurt. If we don't open our hearts, they can't be broken. If we keep our distance, we can't be left behind. But that's not how we were created to live. That's not the design. A tree cut off from its roots does not thrive. A river that refuses to meet the ocean does not grow. And a heart that refuses to love, that refuses to be known, will never find the fullness of life it was meant to have. Some of you have spent years running from this truth. You have convinced yourself that you are better off alone, that you don't need anyone, that as long as you can take care of yourself, you will be fine. But listen, self-sufficiency is not the same as purpose. A life spent avoiding pain is not the same as a life well lived. You were made for something more. Think back to the moments in your life when you felt the most alive, the moments that stirred something deep in your soul. I guarantee they were moments of connection, when love was given freely, when kindness was shared, when joy was multiplied because it wasn't carried alone. Those moments were glimpses of the design. Signs that we are at our best, our strongest, our most whole when we are in relationship. And not just with people, but with the one who created us. Because our need for connection doesn't just point us to each other, it points us to Him. That ache we feel in the quiet hours, that longing for something more than what this world offers, that sense that we were meant for something greater. It is no accident. It is the whisper of the divine calling us home. Some of you have been running from that call for a long time. You've filled your life with noise, with busyness, with distractions, hoping to silence the longing in your heart. But it is still there, isn't it? Because you were not meant to walk this road alone. You were meant to be known, to be loved, to be part of something greater than yourself. It's not too late. No matter how long you have been wandering, no matter how far you have strayed, no matter how deep the loneliness has settled in, there is still a way back. There is still a place for you in the grand design. There is still a love that has never once turned away from you, even in your darkest hour. You don't have to keep searching. You don't have to keep pretending that solitude is enough. You don't have to keep running. Come home. Come back to the life you were created for. Come back to the love that has been waiting for you all along. Because you were not made to stand alone. You were made to belong. Life is not a solo performance. It is a great symphony, a masterpiece unfolding note by note, moment by moment. Each of us is given a place in the music, a part to play, a role in the divine composition. But how many of us spend our lives trying to play alone, trying to make sense of the song without ever listening to the melody that surrounds us? A single note, no matter how strong or pure, cannot create harmony by itself. A violin played in isolation, no matter how skillfully, will never capture the fullness of an orchestra. It is only when instruments join together, when each note finds its place within the whole, that music becomes something greater than itself. And yet, how often do we convince ourselves that we must make our way alone? We have been told that success is found in independence, that strength is found in standing apart, that the only way to protect ourselves from disappointment is to avoid depending on anyone at all. And so we go through life like a lone instrument, trying to create something meaningful without ever stepping into the greater song. But listen, joy was never meant to be hoarded. Love was never meant to be locked away. Burdens were never meant to be carried alone. Think back to the moments in your life when you have felt real joy, not just fleeting happiness, but deep, soul-filling joy. I guarantee those moments were shared. Maybe it was the laughter of a friend in the middle of hard times. Maybe it was the warmth of a family gathered around a table. Maybe it was a kind word from someone who really saw you in a moment when you needed it most. Joy multiplies when it is shared. And the same is true for sorrow. The weight of life is too heavy for one person to carry. We were not made to bear it alone. There is something powerful, something healing about knowing that when we stumble, when we fall, when we feel like we can't take another step, there is someone beside us who will lift us up. Some of you have been trying to carry the weight of your life alone for far too long. You have convinced yourself that no one would understand, that no one truly sees you, that your burdens are yours alone to bear. But hear me now, you were never meant to carry them alone. Look at the world around you. The waves do not move without the pull of the tide. The trees do not stand without the strength of their roots. The stars do not shine alone, but are set in constellations, lighting up the night together. And you were never meant to be a lone star, a single note, a wandering soul without a place to belong. You were meant to take your place in the great design, to find your melody in the song, to join in the rhythm of something greater than yourself. Some of you are afraid to step into that, afraid of being known, afraid of being hurt, afraid that if you let others into your life, they will see your brokenness, your weakness, your flaws. But listen, the symphony of life is not played by perfect instruments. It is played by those who are willing to join in, even with all their imperfections. And so the question is not whether you are worthy. The question is, are you willing? Are you willing to set down the weight of isolation? Are you willing to open your heart again? Are you willing to take your place in the music? Because the melody is already playing, the song is already moving, the great symphony of life is unfolding, and there is a place for you in it. But the music is not the same without you. There comes a moment in every journey when a choice must be made, a crossroads, a turning point, a place where two paths stand before you, one well-worn, familiar, safe, the other uncertain, uncharted, unknown. Some of you are standing at that crossroads right now. You have spent years walking the path of solitude, convincing yourself that it was easier this way, that you were better off alone. Maybe it started as self-protection, a way to guard your heart after too many disappointments. Maybe it was pride, the belief that you could make it on your own. Or maybe it was fear. The fear of being hurt, the fear of being vulnerable, the fear of letting someone see the real you. But deep down, you know this path has taken its toll. You feel the weight of it in the quiet moments, in the loneliness that lingers even when you try to distract yourself, in the ache that nothing in this world has been able to satisfy. You don't have to keep walking this way. There is another path. A path that leads back to love, back to connection, back to the life you were meant to live. But you must be willing to take the first step. Think of the prodigal son, how he wandered far from home, convinced he could build a life on his own, only to find himself lost, empty, broken. He thought he had gone too far, made too many mistakes, burned too many bridges. But the moment he turned back, the moment he took that first step toward home, he found that the love he had left behind had never left him. That same love is waiting for you. No matter how long you have been walking this road alone, no matter how many walls you have built around your heart, no matter how distant you feel from the life you were meant to live, it is not too late. The way home is still open. The arms of love are still reaching for you, but you must choose. The easy choice is to stay where you are, to keep doing what you have always done, to tell yourself that loneliness is just part of life, that you are fine on your own, that nothing needs to change. But deep down, you know that is not true. The harder choice, the braver choice, is to take the first step back, to let down your guard, to allow yourself to be seen, to be known, to be loved. Yes, it will take courage. Yes, it will take faith. But listen, no great story was ever written without risk. No great journey was ever completed without a first step. Some of you have been waiting for a sign, for a moment. You were never meant to be a lone wolf, wandering through life with no pack, no home, no place to belong. You were created for relationship. You were created for love. You were created to walk this journey with others. And now the choice is before you. Will you keep walking the path of solitude, or will you take the first step back toward life? The road home is open. The way forward is clear. As we journey through life, it's easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of everything we must do, everything we must become. The world constantly tells us to move faster, to climb higher, to achieve more. And somewhere along the way, we begin to believe that these things will fulfill us. We think that the emptiness inside can be filled with success, with recognition, with possessions. We believe that if we reach the top, if we stand on our own, we'll find satisfaction. But deep down, we know something isn't quite right. We feel it in the quiet moments when the noise of the world fades away and we are left alone with ourselves. No matter how much we achieve, no matter how much we acquire, we still sense that something is missing. We still feel the gap. We still feel the longing. This longing is not a flaw in us, but a sign of something deeper, something we were made to recognize. We were made to yearn for more than this world can offer. Think for a moment about the vastness of creation. Look at the stars in the sky, the mountains that rise to meet the clouds, the rivers that carve through the earth. Everything in creation has a purpose, a place, a design. There is nothing random about the way the world works. There is an order, a purpose, a plan. The heavens declare it, the earth reveals it, and in our hearts we know it. And just as the world around us is filled with purpose, so too are our lives filled with purpose. But we can't always see it. When we isolate ourselves, when we pull away, when we refuse to acknowledge our place in the greater whole, we miss the beauty of our part in the grand design. We lose sight of the fact that we are not accidents but creations, each of us with a role to play in the unfolding story of life. We were not meant to live in isolation. We were meant to live in connection, connection to each other and connection to something greater than ourselves. The longing that we feel, the emptiness that we try to fill, is a reminder that we were created to belong, to be part of something more. Some of you have spent a long time trying to fill that emptiness with the things of this world. You've chased after success, after wealth, after status, hoping that something would finally satisfy the hunger inside. But let me tell you this, nothing in this world can fill that void. Not success, not possessions, not fame. There is only one thing that can fill the emptiness in your soul, and that is the love of the Creator. When we connect with the divine purpose for which we were made, when we accept that we are part of a greater whole, That's when we begin to understand the depth of life's beauty. That's when we begin to see that we are not just solitary travelers wandering through an indifferent world. We are members of a greater family, created for a greater purpose, living out a story that stretches beyond time itself. You may feel lost in the moment. You may feel as though your life has no direction, no meaning. You may feel like an outcast, separate from the flow of the world around you. But hear this, you are not lost. You are part of something larger than you can see right now. Your life is woven into the fabric of the universe, and each step you take is part of the grand tapestry being woven by the Creator. You are not alone. You are not an accident. You are part of the plan. When you begin to see your life through that lens, when you begin to understand that you are not a solitary figure lost in the crowd, but an integral part of the divine design, that is when you begin to live. That is when the emptiness begins to fade and the fullness of purpose fills your heart. The path you walk is not just your own. It is a journey that connects you with the past, the present, and the future. It connects you with those who have walked before you and those who will walk after you. And most importantly, it connects you to the Creator who has a plan for your life. So I ask you today, do you believe that your life has purpose? Do you believe that you are part of something greater? Because when you do, when you truly believe that your life is woven into the fabric of this grand design, you will begin to see yourself not as a lone wolf, but as a vital part of a great unfolding story. And that story, your story, has only just begun.